Well, apologies, folks. I thought I was with you right from the start of the broadcast. Apparently, there was a slight technical issue, but we're all okay now. Great to be with you for Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. And, of course, we'll have the Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil a little later on as well for their qualifying sessions. This fantastic circuit at the Autódromo Velocitta. Very exciting indeed to see what these guys can do. It is a tough circuit, this one. It always provides great drama and intrigue. And in qualifying, that is going to be absolutely no different. Jake Sanson with you as we cover qualifying here in Velocitta on the fantastic region of Mogi Guaçu. It's, for once, a beautiful sunny day. We've had all sorts of events in the past when I've commentated on this particular circuit in different championships when the weather has been questionable, to say the very least. But I tell you what, it is absolutely sensational to see these cars starting to pound around out on the circuit for the first of our sessions. And it's definitely going to be an intriguing one for the contenders out there on the course. We're starting with the Carrera Rookie Cup category. So they are the ones out there on the course at the moment. After the first round of the championship, of course, the man who leads the points in that particular fraternity is Israel Salmen in the number 51 car. You're currently looking at Leonardo Sanchez as he gets himself up to speed. He is currently fourth in the rookie rankings up to this point, chasing down Israel Salman, the championship leader, and then Edu Guedes and Gustavo Zanon, who are in the top three. Behind Leonardo Sanchez in the points rankings so far, we have Gustavo Farah, Raman Alcaraz, and then Piero Kifali and Marco Pizan. So there are 8 rookies in the category this year, and those are the 8 drivers that are on circuit for this particular time session. Obviously, they are splitting up the categories by the various classes to give the drivers the best possible chance of a good run in the qualifying session. So it's an interesting way of going about it, obviously, but it does give the drivers plenty of opportunity to have a little bit of spare track to play with out on the course. And it obviously means that we're going to have a really exciting situation for the contenders out there. So far at the moment, it's going well for the championship leader, Israel Salmen. Currently up at the top spot on a 1:32.6. That's just for the banker lap. Gustavo Zanon going up into second position for the time being, but they're still dialing in the fast laps. They're not really up to temperature yet in terms of the tyre and brake temperature. You've got to build up to the speed in these particular cars. It takes a good 3 or 4 laps to really find what the car can do, but you still have to drive it to the limit to a certain degree to try and find a little bit of that speed, although Israel Salmen, I notice, is starting to find some time a little bit earlier than some of the others out there. There is Salmen, who is currently the leader in the rookie category, having had a fantastic run last time out in the first round of the championship. And certainly looking very excited about the way things have currently progressed for him over the starting point of the season. It's great to see so many contenders really finding their feet over the terms of the first round of the championship. Of course, in the rookie category, it was actually a fantastically competitive run. We had several drivers pushing their way towards the front end of the field. Now we're going to get to see what the contenders can actually do over the course of this circuit. A very different challenge, of course, compared to what we saw a few weeks ago. But Israel Salmen was obviously a very interesting competitor to keep an eye on. He was actually 26th across his first practice session last time out in a very different scenario. That's 26th overall, of course, where he was, in terms of the rookie category, right up there at the sharp end. But he wasn't the fastest rookie on that occasion. That was actually Piero Kifali, who was one of the fastest rookies on that particular occasion. So as the contenders are gearing themselves up, everybody gearing themselves up for a good run, as we watch Edu Guedes going around the course in the Tech Bomb machine. We're starting to gear up these times as well. You can't really rush things in a qualifying session. You have to be there or thereabouts in order to really find your feet. And on this circuit, with its changes in elevation and its very winding and twisty, very technical circuit, the dynamic of this racetrack is a very interesting one. Apologies that we won't be able to bring you the word from our on-the-spot reporters. That is Gabby down there in pit lane, but unfortunately my Portuguese is not really up to scratch as yet. And of course, you're here tuned in for the English-speaking viewers. There is Janon trying to work his way faster all the way through the course. Gustavo Zanon currently third in the rankings after a fantastic run in rookie last time out. But now the lap times, as you can see, are now ducking under 1 minute 30 for the lap. A 1:29.0 is the banker from Israel Salmen, so expect those times to tumble quite dramatically. It's going to be an interesting run for all of the drivers out there, of course, but we're going to see a lot of those times change. And that's what we're keen to see over the course of proceedings now. You'll see a lot of changes in the way things are currently progressing between the drivers. A couple of new faces as well, of course. We only had 8 drivers in the competition last time for rookie, and now we have a 9th contender in the ranks. Always good to see a new face added to the roster. And already coming fresh out of the blocks and being very competitive with it, which is always very good to see. Piling on the pressure. Janon has actually now moved up into 2nd position. Only half a second now away from the ranking of Israel Salmen, who is still the benchmark setter at the moment. And turn 1, the newest addition to the field. Coming up towards us. I'm just trying to keep an eye on the times of Israel Salmen because they seem to have dropped off the pace a little bit. You don't have a lot of time to play with, of course, in this category, so you have to be very choice as to where to go for those fast times. So that obviously makes for a very interesting battle for the contenders out there. But certainly we're going to see some very interesting times coming in from the competitors as we continue to progress. Up and over the crest. You can see how hard you have to push to actually get the back of the car to lean in on that part of the course. It's always fascinating to see the elevation changes of this circuit and how it continues to run through. Through the S's, they go left, right, left, and then down this long crest. This is where the car really wants to kick in. You've got to ride the curb on the way through. These sweepers really settle the car out. You've got to have a perfect setup to get a decent enough balance of the car all the way through. It's not easy to find that fine biting point. As we switch across now to Leonardo Sanchez, who, as you can see, is really leaning into these apexes, trying to find the biting point. Really interesting to see what these guys are able to come up with. As we saw Bruno Campos just trying to go around in a fine position. He's currently now down in 4th position. He was in P2 at one stage. But Israel Salmen still has the time to beat on a 1:29.018 ahead of Gustavo Janon and Piero Cifali. Gustavo Farah has just come across the line on a 1:30.01. That puts him to 5th position in front of Edu Guedes. But this is the man to watch for, Leonardo Sanchez. Very, very quick over the course of the first round of the championship. Certainly one to watch for in terms of battling for the top spot. As Marco Pisani has now gone up into 2nd position on a 1:29.425. But it's this man we need to keep an eye on. Leonardo Sanchez hoping to find something pretty fast from this lap. Coming out of that final hairpin, which is actually relatively slow in. Then you can get on the power mid-apex. You've got to time it right because that curb really eats up the tyres as you come off the final turn. And over the line, and Leonardo Sanchez's lap is no better actually, so he remains down in 8th position. He came up with a slower time. Now what's that? We got a spin in the middle of the first sector, I think that is. That's just on the drop of the hill, and that is Salmen, the man who's gone fastest in the rookie session so far. That's how easy it is to drop the car. He just skates around. There's absolutely nothing that Salmen can do. Once the back end decides it's going to overtake the front, that's it. You're on a one-way collision course with the grass verge. He was lucky he didn't hit anything, actually. He managed to stop the car without coming into contact with anything. Unfortunately, that is going to have destroyed the tyres. So Israel Salmen not going to get a faster lap time out of this set of tyres. So I think all you're going to get really now is his time of a 1:29.0. He comes into the pits, obviously, because those tyres are not going to be good enough for a lap anymore. But crucially, nobody else is able to get within his time. So he's certainly found the benchmark. Pisani's 0.4 of a second back. Here is Leonardo Sanchez still trying to find that. But still no joy at the moment as he works his way through the S's and drops his way through to the left-hander once again. So still they battle on, but the checkered flag is now out, so if this lap isn't good enough, it's not going to be. Leonardo Sanchez, I think he went wide on the trajectory out of that final turn and hoping to get a faster line out of it. It's kind of a slow in, fast out approach as he comes through. And over the line to finish off the lap. And what's that good enough for? He's done a 1:31.34 there, so no improvement from Leonardo Sanchez. So it looks like it's going to be Israel Salmen all the way. No major changes. Gustavo Janon came across the line there. And no improvement from him. A 1:29.865 is not his best. And there is a finish off of the run there from Ramon Alcaraz, who sadly takes up the tail end of the rookie field. It's still important to get use of every opportunity with this guy. His times are fairly consistent, still in the 1:31s, having only just broken into that. But it's a very satisfactory run for Israel Salmen, considering that he spun on his qualifying run. Not going to lose the pole time in rookie, though. That's the main thing. So he comes through. The checkered flag is out on the course, as you can see for yourself. Ramon Alcaraz comes through to complete the lap, as does Gustavo Fara. And just one more car will come through. That is Edu Guedes, who did actually get his best qualifying lap there at the end of the session. It's a 1:30.104, and that actually displaces this man, Leonardo Sanchez, who will not be happy with that at all. It's just not been a particularly smooth qualifying run for him at all. So very unfortunate indeed for Leonardo Sanchez, but there is your provisional classification in the rookie category of Carrera Cup. Brazil, Israel Salmen in front of Marco Pezzani, and then Bruno Campos in third position. Just 89 thousandths of a second covering those two drivers. Then Gustavo Janon in fourth position, Piero Cefali in fifth position ahead of Gustavo Fara, Edu Guedes, Leonardo Sanchez, and Ramon Alcaraz to finish off the run. 1.6 seconds covering Leonardo Sanchez and Ramon Alcaraz alone. And that just shows you the disparity between the rookie drivers. But you've got to remember, these are big beasts, these GT3 Porsches. They're not easy to get used to. They're very heavy. They're very twitchy on the throttle. So it's all about trying to get used to that balance of weight transfer. They're not the easiest cars to tame. And obviously in the rookie category, they're going to find it a lot tougher than other drivers with a lot more experience behind them. So that is the classification done then for the rookie category of Carrera Cup. And Israel Salmen, here's the replay of his spin. Only just caught the grass verge with his front end, to be fair. But that just shows you how hard he was pushing. And he's still in the rookie category, so you can almost expect mistakes to come from the rookies in Porsche Carrera Cup in any nation, never mind in Brazil. So a very tricky moment for Israel Salmen, but he maintains his pole position. And he'll just be grateful that he didn't actually come into contact with anything. That's the big difference, essentially, from his point of view. He really didn't want to be in that particular difficulty, so he's very lucky that he was able to come away from that. So obviously the previous run from Israel Salmen, good enough to put him into a strong position. And they can be very happy with the way it's all gone. So I think they're just going to chat to Israel Salmen. Keep an eye on the Porsche Carrera Cup website of Brazil. And you'll be able to hear all of the reaction from Israel Salmen after a very solid run to start his run. No doubt he's going to be a little bit expressive in the hair-raising notion of what happened to him out there with the slide during his run. But hey, he can be very happy and very satisfied with the way it's all gone so far. So it'll be a fantastic starting procedure as far as he's concerned. He can be perfectly happy with the way it's all progressed here. But Israel Salmen has the sharp end of the dais pretty much nailed up. So it's certainly gone very well indeed for him. His time was actually a 1:29.018. So that's definitely going to be indicative of seeing the Carrera Cup leaders. We'll probably see them knock their way into the 1:28s. The rookies are still trying to find their feet in terms of the raw speed. And a few of the drivers we saw in the last round of the championship, at least, were off the leaders' pace, the overall leaders' pace, by about a second to a second and a half. So there's still a lot of time for them to find. So that gives us a bit of an indication as to how things are likely to progress. But that's a positive start to the weekend here in Velocitta for Israel Salmen. Fastest time in the rookie category with a 1:29.018. 0.4 of a second quicker than Marco Pezzani. It was only a fraction ahead of Bruno Campos. And then Gustavo Janon, fourth position in front of Piero Cefali. and then Gustavo Farah, Edu Guedes, Leonardo Sanchez, and Ramon Alcaraz. The entirety of that group separated by 2.8 seconds. About what you'd come to expect, really, between all of the rookies in this category, of which there are 9 in the 2024 campaign. The next category is getting ready for its qualifying session now. And of course, it's going to be an intriguing one for the next group of competitors out there on the course. We've obviously had the rookie drivers. Now we're going to have the sport drivers come out onto the circuit. So they will venture out for their qualifying session. Looks like they've already been given the signal to do so. So now the drivers will head out for the next category. Always fascinating to see these qualifying sessions. And of course, the battle will become a little bit easier to underlie once the drivers have gone out onto the circuit and done their thing. Now, this is a replay. Oof, goodness me, how close was that between Pisani and Israel Salman? That was only in qualifying. And they were very lucky, actually, that they didn't come to blows. That kind of thing can happen occasionally when drivers are heading out onto the circuit to try and find their fast times. Oh, and we've had an incident on the outlap already. So that has not gone according to plan in the early part of proceedings already. So let's see what happened. We're going to see a replay at the top of the hill. It's exactly the same place that Israel Salman lost it. Only this time, it's happened quite a long way in for Junior. So a bit of a moment there, unfortunately, but it certainly could have been a lot worse than that. We're very fortunate that that was only a slight hiccup rather than a proper muller of a moment. That could have been a lot worse. So that was Josimar Junior that went around there, as we now take an eye on Georgios Frangoulis, who is coming up towards us. Georgios Frangoulis of the sport category. We've only got a handful of drivers in sport as well, but they obviously send them out in the different categories. So we'll see the likes of Eduardo Menossi, as well as Linu Perez, Nelson Marcondes, Georgios Frangoulis, Nelson Monteiro, Roman Zimkiewicz, Francisco Horta, Peter Ferter, Josimar Junior, Ryan Mascarello, and Carlos Campos. They'll all be out there on the course, trying to find that extra bit of time. I have to say, it's a good way of doing it, splitting up the field into the 3 different classes, because when you've got a field of 29, you know, finding the decent fast lap is not going to be particularly easy to do. And splitting them up into the 3 grades of Rookie, Sport and Carrera Cup actually gives them the chance to have that clear bit of track to play with. They don't have quite so much to sweat about. There is Lino Perez heading towards us as he drops down the hill for this left, right, sweeper of section. It's fascinating watching the cars come through there in full chat. You can see that Lino Perez is not quite committing to that yet. He's just still trying to feel his way around the car, trying to dial in the tyres and brakes. As I said before, it takes a couple of laps really for that to properly embed in. So you'll see that over the course of the next few opportunities. And the drivers are still trying to get themselves a little bit up on pace now. So everybody's going to be working their way slightly further forward now. And we are ready to see what the drivers can do when they head up to speed. I've always found this particular car to be very beautiful to look at. This is Francisco Horta's machine, as they, again, just try and dial themselves up a little bit faster in preparation for what is to come. So hopefully we're going to see a very solid time, but you can see the travel in the rear of the car as they pound over those bumps. This circuit is not very forgiving for a GT3 car. And there is the treble 8, Lino Perez, making his way up the crests. Very easy to lose it on this part of the course, but the undulation change, the elevation change in the rise and peak and trough of camber is always really fascinating in GT3 cars in particular. But on this circuit, it really does show you a lot about what is still to come. So you can see the times of the rookie drivers at the top there when they were up to speed, and then compare them to the sport drivers. So CARR stands for Carrera Rookie, CARS stands for Carrera Sport, and then I think it's going to be CARC that will come next for Carrera Cup, the competitors out there on the course for their time. Either that or it will just be CAR. So Lino Perez hoping to be the first one to really put a fast time on the board. But obviously everybody is still dialing themselves in the hope that they can continue the run. But everybody is out on course now, trying to get the most from the car. As now we're going to get to see what the drivers can do. For the moment, Lino Perez has set the benchmark at 1:33.829 for the record. There is Nelson Marcondes, who is the fastest of the drivers on their outlap. Mind you, that has now just been taken by Carlos Campos, who's just gone a little bit quicker than Peter Ferter. And then Lino Perez and Nelson Marcondes, then Roman Zimkiewicz, Georgios Frangoulis, and then Yosimar Junior, Nelson Monteiro, and Francisco Horta. But now we are starting to get some fast laps in, as Ryan Mascarello is not waiting around and has actually banged in a 1:29.485. So clearly not going to wait around for anything. And it's not going to be too long before that 1:29.018 time of Israel Salman, the leading rookie, is going to be displaced. Whether it's going to be by one of the sport drivers or one of the Carrera Cup drivers or not is yet to be seen, but it's definitely going to be an interesting challenge to see who gets there. There is Ryan Mascarello, third overall at the moment. Of course, they are separated by the three classes, but all of the times are added together, and then at the end of the third session for Carrera Cup drivers, the top 10 will go through to their final shootout for the pole position times. So Ryan Mascarello, currently the leading competitor in this category. Very distinctive with the Brazilian colours on his car. Not everybody carries the same colour scheme, of course. And the team are down there just keeping an eye on Ryan Mascarello's progress. He comes through the line this time. His best time so far is a 1:29.485, and he smashed it. 1:28.875. So Mascarello goes up to the top overall then in qualifying for the Carrera Cup. An excellent start. And that was fairly inevitable once the car was getting up to speed. Peter Ferter has now gone up to third position. And up to fourth has come Carlos Campos. So Carlos Campos now in fourth position overall. There is Giorgio Frangoulis doing a fairly solid run. His time is currently 2.2 seconds off the pace, but this is his first flying lap. In fact, this is most drivers' first flying lap, so we'll get to see what they can really produce out of the final turn. Up on the curbs, over the grid hatchings. Are we going to see a time improve faster than Ryan Mascarello was able to do? Not yet. 1:29.274. But now Nelson Marcondes is in that mix as well. So Nelson Marcondes going sixth overall with that time, and Yosimar Junior has actually stepped up the game as well, up into eighth position, just a fraction quicker than Bruno Campos and Gustavo Janon, who are in danger of being knocked out of that top 10 flight. So there is Georgios Frangoulis, who is now fifth overall. Of course, we still haven't had the Carrera Cup drivers come out onto the circuit. We're currently in the sport category, of which there are 10 drivers out on the course. There were 9 rookies, there are 10 sport and 10 cup drivers, just to make things very even and fair out there in terms of numbers on the circuit. But Ryan Mascarello looking to improve on the 1:28.875 time set. Nelson Monteiro, by the way, has just gone fourth quickest. What can Mascarello do this time? 1:28.5, so even quicker from Ryan Mascarello. And that's a really good run from the man in the number 22 car with the Brazilian flag adorning his particular GT3 machine. An excellent start to the run. And there's Peter Ferter's time coming through. It's a 1:28.7 now. So you're definitely going to need to be in the thick of the 1:28s to have a competitive time moving forward. And once the Carrera Cup drivers come in, well, there's probably going to be a few of them nudging into the 1:27s, maybe even the 1:26 mark. So Ryan Mascarello and Peter Ferter have actually now pipped Israel Salman's time. There could be a few other drivers going faster and faster than that as well. Everybody seems to be up on pace though, which is good to see. There is the 56. So that is the car at this moment pushing its weight a little bit further forward, trying to get a faster time, and that is Peter Ferter. Ferter is only 0.2 of a second away from the mark of Ryan Mascarello, to be fair. So there's still a lot more work to be done. The braking zone, look at the twitch and the travel of the car under brakes. It really is struggling to slow down for this downhill drop. Flying from the left section towards the end of the lap, and then that long flowing right hairpin. The rest of the lap is pretty fast and flowing, but this section at the end, it really confuses engineers on setup, as Ryan Mascarello has done everything he can out of the car. He's made that very clear by coming into the pits. I don't think he's going to find any more. He certainly doesn't think so. But what about Peter Ferter? If he can get closer to a 1:28.5, he might be able to displace Ryan Mascarello. What does he do across the line? No, he's nowhere. 1:29.5 by comparison. So a full second away from Mascarello's previous lap. And this is about the indication that the tyres are not really going to give you any more than that. There's the treble 8, that's Lino Perez. trying to go closer to the mark of Carlos Campos, who is currently 6th overall. That shows you, though, the time of Israel Salman was particularly competitive. A good run from him. Oh, and a little bit wide, unfortunately, for the 77. So a little bit wide for Francisco Horta. I think I saw that there was a penalty being handed out to Israel Salman. Now, he was the leading rookie. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that's for. I'm going to see if I can try and get the message up again. But it looks to me as though, I think, an issue. Oh, and a big off, and into the barriers. Goodness me. That is not what you need in qualifying. A big mistake from Roman Zinkovic. That's really going to have damaged the... Well, that'll damage all sorts in the car, that one. The way it struck the right-hand side of the car. They're going to have to check the suspension geometry. They're going to have to check the push rods. Not going to be easy after making a mistake like that. It's very easily done. And Roman Zinkovic, unfortunately, throwing the lap away there. Being able to turn through the corners are going to be a little bit more hectic as well. I have no doubt that Roman Zinkovic is going to just peel straight into the pits. How did it happen? Came through the right. The car is already looking pretty planted. Catches the curb. Spits the car out right. He hasn't quite corrected it. And he spits from one side of the road to the other. See, he's on throttle on the grass. That's why it kicked him out, and bang! Skates along the Armco. I'm very impressed he was actually able to keep it from crunching the car. He actually completed the lap and went round for another one, so he clearly feels that the car is okay. He's very lucky, I have to say, after binning it, just getting that tiniest little bit of throttle over the grass. That was what did it, as Ryan Mascarello has got out of the car. Not a bad run indeed from him. A 1:28.533 to go provisional fastest. But of course, we still haven't got the Cup car drivers out onto the circuit as yet, as we watch Linu Perez finishing off his run. We're in the final half minute of the session. There will be a few drivers out there who feel they can still get something out of these cars on this circuit. Linu Perez certainly wants to finish the lap and start one more. Depending on what the tyres can give him, he'll have a big indication of what the tyres can give him when he comes through. He may not actually make it to the line in time for another lap. Having said that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that is the session. He just misses out on another lap, unfortunately for him, but has he been able to improve on this one? No, 1:32.1 on that occasion. So a very satisfied Ryan Mascarello can be very pleased with that and has done a very strong job. So it's Ryan Mascarello in front of Peter Vetter and Israel Salman, who was, of course, the leading rookie driver. There is the 80 of Roman Zinkovic. I'm amazed that car is still travelling at full chat, actually. His previous lap was a 1:35.8 despite the trip into the Armco. What can he do? He's actually improved. He's done a 1:29.465. Nobody can knock Roman Zinkovic down, not even an Armco barrier. Here's Yosimar Junior. He had a spin on his outlap, of course. And he's been able to rectify himself since then in the Hebron number 27 car. Off the final turn and pounding down the straight, checkered flag in sight. What can he do? Yosimar Junior. He's done a 1:29.3, but that's a 1/10 of a second slower than he had managed before. So no major improvements, unfortunately, for Yosimar Junior. So he has to be content with what he's already produced. And there is the 77 car. That is the machine of Francisco Horta. He has finished off his run. So there we have it. For the moment, it is Ryan Mascarello in provisional pole position. Peter Vetter just 0.2 of a second away from that mark on a 1:28.75. And then Israel Salman, the leading rookie, remains in 3rd overall at the moment. And then Nelson Marcondes, Nelson Monteiro, and Carlos Campos in the top 6 from Linu Perez, Yosimar Junior, Jorge Sfrangulis, and Marco Pisani, who of course is the 2nd rookie driver in the rankings. Then Roman Zinkovic with Bruno Campos, Gustavo Janon, Francisco Horta, and Piero Kifali. And then Gustavo Fara, Edu Gudez, Leonardo Sanchez, and Ramon Alcaraz. The entire field now separated by 3.2 seconds, which tells you that Ryan Mascarello was about 0.48 quicker than the rookie driver Israel Salman. But not a bad run from everybody out there. Some will be happier than others, but it's not easy to get this circuit done well. But the provisional pole position going the way of Ryan Mascarello. And Peter Vetter looking very solid in 2nd position so far. But there's a long way still to go in this qualifying procedure, because we still have the Cup car drivers ready to head out onto the circuit shortly. And then, of course, whatever the top 10 is after that point, those are the 10 that will go through to the shootout. As you can see, drivers pushing the mark all the way through. This circuit is not the easiest to tame in the best of times, but in GT3 monsters like these Porsche Carrera Cup cars, the circuit really does bite back. But if you can get a sweet spot with these machines, the satisfaction is absolutely uncharted. Frangulis just demonstrating how much vibration and travel there is at full chat through that right-hand sweeper that dips down through the apex. So many incredible cars here and so many amazing drivers pushing their limits. There is Roman Zimkiewicz after his moment. Unfortunately, we won't get the translation with Ryan Mascarello, but again, you'll be able to get all of the reaction, I'm sure, from the Porsche Carrera Cup GT3 Brazil website. So do keep an eye on that. But Ryan Mascarello doing a very good job, it has to be said, out there, considering this circuit is not the easiest to get a handle of. He kind of bled his way through each lap, just trying to find that little bit of extra each time. He wasn't really aggressive, just found a smooth line and was able to really maximize what the car could give him through the course of that session. It was very natural to watch him at the wheel. So he certainly got to find a really smooth and very syncopatic line all the way through. So really good to see the very limit of the car being extracted, but also explored as he went the way through there. So really nice to observe, and you can really see that there was some good pace and some good performances coming through. So Ryan Mascarello, provisional pole position in the number 22 New Holland car, and doing a sensational job. The car, of course, that is coated in the colours of the nation's flag of Brazil. And it's very fitting, therefore, that it comes through as the leading sport driver. But we are not done yet with qualifying. There are still 10 cars to go out on the circuit in the third group. That's the Carrera Cup group of drivers. Alci Feldman, Franco Giaffoni, Miguel Paludo, Werner Neugebauer, Thiago Vivacqua, Pedro Aguar, Christian Hahn, Rodrigo Melo, Lucas Sales, and Marcel Müller. It's going to be a fascinating battle for all of the contenders out there as the teammates Werner Neugebauer and Franco Giaffoni get themselves dialed in, ready for the run. These are the big guns of Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, and they are now going to head out onto the circuit to showcase what they can do. Expect these guys to be the ones that will challenge for the overall pole position. The time to beat, of course, is that of Ryan Mascarello, a 1:28.533. A very solid lap. The 12 minutes go on and start to tick down. So now we're going to get to see what these drivers are capable of. Again, it's going to take a few laps to really dial in the tyres. There is Thiago Vivacqua, definitely a favourite for pole position here. And even if they go fastest of all in this group, that doesn't guarantee them pole position, because it's the top 10 overall after this group that goes through to the shootout. So we could even see one or two of the other categories in there. We may see Ryan Mascarello. It's going to be tough to see if we can actually see Israel Salman be in the top 10 overall. But it's certainly not impossible. It's doable. As we watch the preparation of Thiago Vivacqua, just trying to get himself dialed in and ready for his fast laps. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all continues, though, as we get ourselves into the next phase of the qualifying session. Green flags around the course, and now we're going to see what sort of lap times these guys can produce. Christian Hahn, by the record, is the first one to actually cross the line and start a lap, as Alci Feldman, the number one, going through and running a very solid race battle of it as well. And there is Marcel Müller, hoping to continue after the fabulous run that happened last time out. So there will still be a lot of great challenges to come in this qualifying session, as everybody's just still dialing in the car. Give them a couple of laps before they really start to push it, because that's what you have to do in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. Just give it a couple of laps to really warm up the tyres and the brakes, and then you'll get the most out of them. Marcel Müller just doing that, just going through the motions, just trying to find where the car is going to be at its strongest. Obviously, having had 2 sessions out on the course already from the rookies and the sport drivers, that lays down a little bit of rubber as well. So those first 2 laps obviously give the driver a little bit of a sense of feel as to where the grip is coming back to them. And there you are, there's the third category, CAR, which tells you that is the premier category of drivers. These ones are going to be the ones going for the fastest laps, but whether they can all knock out Ryan Mascarello from that top 10 shootout remains to be seen. There are 10 of them out there that will go for it. Christian Hahn, Alessio Feldman, Lucas Sales, Marcel Müller, Werner Neugebauer, Miguel Paludo, Thiago Vivacqua and Franco Giaffoni all in the mix. So it's going to be fascinating to see who comes through and gets themselves moving forward. There is Paludo. So Miguel Paludo wanting to work his way further forward. 8 minutes left in the session, and this is about the time that drivers will want to start dialing in the car. 2 laps around the circuit usually gives the tyres and brakes enough of an opportunity to find their feet, and it's on the 3rd lap, around the 2nd complete lap, that's when you're really going to start to find the times tumble. But for the sake of argument, Christian Hahn has done a 1:52.27 just to get the times down a little bit. There is a big challenge coming from the number 26. There is Christian Hahn, and you can see he really is now on the limit. So starting to find the pace of this car and looking for a very competitive sector time as well. Just looking to try and find the blend of this Blauer Motorsport car. It's certainly looking very strong. It's the team that's already had a very eventful time at Velocitta in the Stock Car Pro Brazil rankings, and Blauer Motorsport was denied a victory on that particular occasion. And both of their drivers ended up fading rather sadly. Hopefully that's not going to be the case for this man, Christian Hahn, who really wants to find a little bit more from this particular circuit. You can see he's still on some parts of the course trying to find a little bit more heat in the tyres. He was still weaving just to find a little bit more pace. Out of the braking zone now comes Werner Neugebauer. So Werner Neugebauer just trying to find a little bit more from the car as he dials himself in. Now, Christian Hahn's first flying lap is a 1:33.164. So again, that is literally just a short banker to get himself up the flagpole. So he's just going to continue making some time come towards him. Thiago Vivacqua's just beaten that, a 1:32.095. And here comes Neugebauer. Does he work his way forward? He's gone a lot faster than that. Neugebauer's done a 1:28.8. So straight up the ranks, just as Paludo does a 1:29.4. So a couple of drivers are already thinking, right, well, let's just get on it. So Werner Neugebauer already threatening for that pole position as we watch the number 26 of Christian Hahn. The Blauer Motorsport machine really starting to kick up the dust as well from the far side of the course. 6 minutes left on the timing. No weaving down the back straight. He is committed, fully on it now, hoping that he's got a good sense of field as he drops through the S's. A little bit of curb on the inside of the right-hander. Less on the left, down through towards the right. It's a long flowing car. Look how much curb he's taking as he commits to that inside apex of the right. And then through the left, keeping well off the curbs on the way through that particular hairpin. And then you've got to be very hungry through this final hairpin. You go fast in, flip the throttle, then fast back out again. This is a fully committed run. And over the top of the crest, is this going to be a provisional pole position lap from Christian Hahn? It is. 1:28.262. A very solid lap time indeed. Here comes the 5:44. Really starting to knock on the door now. Marcel Müller looking for a fast time. But Christian Hahn has it in his hands at the moment as several other drivers are going to try and get close to that. Marcel Müller does a 1:28.6. Paludo another 1:28.647 this time from him. Werner Neugebauer 1:28.7. So Ryan Mascarello still right up there for the moment. There's still plenty of time for that to change. But with 5 minutes left, Franco Giaffoni going 7th, just quicker than Israel Salmen, the leading rookie. So you can see the drivers are really starting to push the apron now. So here's Alessio Feldman, the number 1 Tag Heuer machine. Just hoping to try and find a little bit more pace from this car. He's got the blinkers on as well. He wants the slower car in front to get out of the way and notice he's coming. Perfectly acceptable from Christian Hahn. He's gone a 1:28.2, so from his point of view, he should be fairly happy to peel back into the pits, well in understanding that he may have a bit more time on the table. But that should be good enough to put him into the top 10. And I think that'll be him done. He seems to be cruising in. There's not much point finding more pace in the car when you've got to save your best for later. No, he is going to go for another one by the look of it. But Marcel Feldman working his way through at the very end of the run now. Hoping to try and find a fantastic run. So what can Alessio Feldman do across the line? That's going to be 7th, 1:28.867 from Alessio Feldman. team obviously very intrigued by that one. There is a penalty, and it's for the number 24. So, just looking through the ranks, there is a penalty that's been handed out to Gustavo Janon. Another of the rookies getting a penalty then, by the look of it. So that's obviously been an investigation from the stewards. They've looked into it. They've tried to figure out what's the best course of action. As Mascarello has now dropped to 4th position, by the way. The leading sport driver is now in 4th. Christian Hahn, Marcel Müller and Werner Neugebauer all going quicker. What about this man? Across the line goes Lucas Salles. That's good enough for 11th. That's not going to be enough to put him into the top 10 shootout. He's going to miss out by 1 place. And he's got to make an improvement of 9 thousandths of a second if he wants to get there. Pedro Aguar now goes 6th fastest. And so too has Thiago Vivacqua gone into the top 10 now, so a little bit more time needed to be found by Lucas Salles to move forward, but it's very close for those top 10 positions now. You've really got to work hard to get into that top 10, and it's not going to be easy to determine who's going to get there. Christian Hahn on a 1:28.2. Marcel Müller, second, 96 thousandths of a second slower. Then Werner Neugebauer, 53 thousandths of a second off, and Marcel Müller's pulled in. He's confident, but that's going to be enough to put him in the top 10. Here comes Alstu Feldman, 1:28.658. That's only 0.39 away from the top spot. That should be enough for Alstu Feldman to keep him in the top 10. Here's Pedro Aguar. Just over a quarter of a second away from the fastest time. It's so close in Carrera Cup. And a 1:28.2 is going to be very hard for any of the other drivers to beat. Pedro Aguar certainly looks very committed through this third sector. Back end just sliding a tiny bit, but certainly not enough to really scrub off speed. A very solid run. Here comes Pedro Aguar into that final hairpin. Remember, you've got to be in that top 10. At the moment, it's Hahn, Müller, Neugebauer, Mascarello, Beludo, Aguar, Feldman, Melo, Ferter, and Thiago Vivacqua. And there's only 0.6 of a second between the 10 of them. We're still in qualifying time as Pedro Aguar goes 4th. 1:28.4 from him. So that displaces Ryan Mascarello. He's probably just crossing his fingers and hoping he'll still be in that top 10. It's looking good for him at the moment, I have to say. He's only 0.27 off the pace of Christian Hahn. So he can be very happy with that overall. But if any of the drivers outside the top 10 overall, particularly Franco Giaffoni and Lucas Salles, want to get through, they've got to go faster than a 1:28.872. We've got less than a minute to find that out. Here's Alstu Feldman. So Alstu Feldman looking to try and move up into the top 6 with his time previously at 1:28.6. He has done a fantastic job there. My apologies, I was looking at a different time. It remains at 1:28.6 because that time was a 1:28.8. Pedro Aguar has been consistently going quicker and quicker. Oh, really overcooks it though into that left-hander. And that, I'm afraid, is surely not going to be an improvement on this occasion. This man's only got one more chance, really. Lucas Salles is going to come across the line with a handful of seconds in hand in the hope that this lap or the next one is going to be good enough to get into the top 10. What can Lucas Salles do as he comes across the line? 1:29.3, it's not enough. You've got to stay committed, Lucas, because it's this lap or nothing now. Look at how deep the car travels in through turn 1 as the checkered flag now comes out on the course. And there is Giaffoni. Franco Giaffoni just 1 place away from getting into that top 10 shootout. But he's got to find a time that is 3 thousandths of a second quicker than he has previously gone. So talk about pressure. Franco Giaffoni needs to get a lap time that is quicker than 1:28.871. And his best is a 1:28.874. How do you find 3 thousandths of a second round a lap? Essentially, just be smoother. On this particular circuit, you've got to be. Franco Giaffoni drops in through the left, through the right. Last chance. Be smooth. Keep it nice and tidy. Hug the curb on the way through. Brake, drop down, tidy it up on the apex. Get a nice turn in. Get easy on the throttle. Don't overcook the back of the car. Make sure the brakes don't overheat as you run through that final section of the course and then out of the final turn. This is the last chance for Franco Giaffoni. Can he pip Thiago Vivacqua and get himself into that top 10 shootout? The answer is no. He just misses out. 1:29.156. Here comes Lucas Salles. Can he get through to the top 10? No, 1:29.753. They just miss out. You're looking for hundredths of a second in this particular group. But Christian Hahn is happy. 1:28.262. Fastest time. Stays in the car. He's through to the top 10 shootout. And so too are Marcel Müller, Werner Neugebauer, Pedro Aguar, Ryan Mascaredo, Miguel Peludo, Alci Feldman, Rodrigo Melo, Peter Ferter, and Thiago Vivacqua. So that's 9 Cup drivers and 1 sport driver, Ryan Mascaredo, his time good enough for 5th overall. So fascinating to see. Look at the travel of the Blau Motorsport Porsche, number 26 from Christian Hahn. Yes, the car travels, but he knows exactly where the car is going to pitch in as it lands. He's absolutely riding that bucking Bronco all the way through the S's. Knows exactly where the car is going to plant. And certainly has the measure and the confidence in the car to handle it when it drops through each apex. This is really nicely managed by Christian Hahn. And I've got a feeling he's actually saved his best for the top 10 shootout. There might be a little bit more on the table from this car. Of course, once we finish the Carrera Cup qualifying session, we'll go straight into the Sprint Challenge, which will happen after that. And that, again, it will be separated into 4 different categories. So plenty more still to come from these cars pushing the limit here on the Velocitta circuit in Mogi Guaçu here in Brazil. Fabulous part of the world, this. And I tell you what, they really do make spectacular racetracks in this part of Brazil. My only experience firsthand of this circuit is on a simulator, but the joy and pleasure that you can get from nailing each apex on this course is so satisfying. As you can see, look at Christian Hahn literally dancing on the line, the ribbon of the curb that flirts with the grass as he comes through. That's how on edge Christian Hahn is. Absolutely riding the rail, essentially, as he comes through. So a fascinating performance then from Christian Hahn, 1:28.262, only 96 thousandths of a second quicker than Marcel Müller's time. And the top 10 separated by Thiago Vivacqua. Gabby's got to get right into the cockpit of the car to have a chat with Christian Hahn. Unfortunately, I can't bring you the translation because my Portuguese is still very rusty. But you can keep an eye on everything that's going on the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil website. I'm sure you'll get the reaction that you want from our provisional pole sitter, Christian Hahn, as we head into the top 10 shootout. And of course, I have to say the provisional shootout because we have the 10 drivers remaining that will now go for pole position in the Carrera Cup Brasil race later on. So it's an important one and a very challenging one for Christian Hahn. He's certainly shown his cards to everybody. He's let everybody know what he's made of, but there's still a bit of time for all of this to change and evolve. So we're going to see another brilliant run from the top 10 drivers now as they battle away for pole position. It's been an interesting one so far. Drivers really starting to find the edge of the limit of these cars. They are fascinating to behold, though, and I've always been such a big lover of the Porsche GT3 car. Been very privileged enough to talk about them in various different guises and categories, whether it be the Fanatec GT World Challenge, whether it be the Le Mans 24 Hours, or whether it be the Mobile One Porsche Super Cup on the Grand Prix bill. These cars are fabulous to watch, and the drivers that tame them really do have their work cut out for them. And I tell you, this is one of those circuits that really does provide excellent drama and fantastic displays of skill and dexterity. The timer starts to tick down then as the top 10 shootout for pole position begins in earnest. And the top 10 drivers from across the 3 sessions are the ones that head out to do battle. There is Alci Feldman in the number 1 Tag Heuer machine, looking for the chance to go to the top spot. Maybe they will just wait for the time in this last session. Just getting through to the top 10 is the first task, then going for pole position in this top 10 shootout. That's where the priority lies. And of course, there are going to be some really serious talent that is going for it. There's Marcel Müller in front of Werner Neugebauer, who also managed to work his way into the top 10 shootout. But this is where things get serious. the drivers have managed to get into that top 10, but a lot of them will probably have left their best on the table. Look at Christian Hahn in the background for the Blau Motorsport team. He's trying to size up the opposition. This isn't even for pole position yet, but he's clearly just sensing where his opponents are. Maybe trying to get him to either hurry up or he'll back off in a moment to try and get some clear space. This could also be just pure intimidation. I've known several drivers try several tricks in qualifying over the years in different categories just to try and get under the skin of their opponent. But you would obviously think going into a qualifying lap, that's not where you want to be. So interestingly, Christian Hahn gets the overtaking move and will now charge after Marcel Müller on the next lap. But is Müller going to back down? Yes, he is. So Müller's actually going to drop behind both cars to get to the back of the queue. Now that's tactical because Christian Hahn then can't get a tow of any kind off either of the drivers in front. It's all gamesmanship in qualifying in these first couple of laps, where drivers are just trying to sense where their own limit is and what their tactics are going to look like once they've come through. But Alce Feldman, Pedro Aguar, Christian Hahn, Rodrigo Melo, Werner Neugebauer, Marcel Müller, and then of course Miguel Peludo is also out there, as is Ryan Mascarello. But we're still in the tyre warming and brake warming phase of the top 10 shootout. We haven't quite started to find the fast times yet. Expect 128s to be there when we get there. Thiago Vavacqua in the top 10, of course, having done a fantastic job in his qualifying run. As you can see, Alce Feldman already looks like he's pushing. So he's clearly not waiting around. Wants to find the maximum from his car as early as possible. This looks like a flying lap to me, or certainly the preparation for a flying lap by nailing the final sector. A couple of the cars not out for this top 10 shootout yet, obviously choosing to wait a little bit longer. But what's the lap from Alce Feldman? 1:34.5, so we're still a good 6 seconds away from the mark. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alce Feldman is kind of taking a Carlos Reutemann approach to this qualifying session, sort of nailing sector by sector, trying to get the best out of the car and then piecing it all together for the flying lap. Christian Hahn and Werner Neugebauer getting themselves ready for their flying lap now. As the drivers are still trying to pound their way around the course, still trying to find that little bit of extra pace. Christian Hahn just wants a bit of a clear track now to play with. There is Marcel Müller, a 1:52.9 just for reference, but he backed off a long way from everybody else on that out lap. Now he's going for the fast time. You're only going to get really 2 laps, maybe 3 if you're lucky, out of these tyres on a fresh set to really find the pure pace. Any later than that, you're not really going to find the time that you want. Marcel Müller just up over the crest in the second sector. Of all the Brazilian circuits that we come to, Velocitta is actually one of my favourites because it's just so punishing. It's a real challenge. Still, you can see Marcel Müller actually still weaving a little bit just to try and accentuate the temperature and elevate it a little bit in preparation for the fast lap. As he comes down that short stretch, he's still just trying to find a little bit more from the car as Rodrigo Melo has come out onto the course, as we know. So he's going to be part of it. But there is the number 8, that's Werner Neugebauer, as Alce Feldman now does a 1:30.1. So again, we're not quite there yet with the times, but we're definitely flirting with it. The next lap they do is almost certainly going to be the properly fast one. As Werner Neugebauer now does a 1:31.7. Christian Hahn has dropped a considerable way back from him in terms of the raw pace, has done a 1:40.6, so nowhere near pace at all, as there is Miguel Peludo, who is now provisionally in 4th in the top 10 shootout. But Rodrigo Melo does a 1:32.7, so drops him to 5th. Thiago Vavacqua now 6th in front of Pedro Aguar, Ryan Mascarello and Marcel Müller. So Marcel Müller now goes 5th quickest to put a time on the board. There is the number 7, as Miguel Peludo goes quickest, 1:28.7. Here we go. This is the fight for pole position now. Miguel Peludo with a 1:28.7. It's going to start getting serious from this moment on. And Peludo has thrown down the gauntlet to his opponents. On his 3rd lap, Miguel Peludo doing a 1:28.7. Now here towards us comes Werner Neugebauer, and this is a much quicker run from him. Thiago Vavakwa in 5th position as well, I notice. Oh, plenty of curb taken from Werner Neugebauer. Now that can really unsettle the front end of the car. That could have cost him quite a bit in terms of time, a good couple of tenths. That doesn't sound like much, but in this championship, that could be the difference between a front row and a 5th row starting position. So through comes Werner Neugebauer. How much will that little drop over the sausage curb have unsettled the car? Comes out of the final turn, plenty of curb on the way out of the final apex, up and over the top of the crest, and what can Werner Neugebauer do? 1:28.459. That's a big lap. It's not the fastest we've seen all day. What about Christian Hahn? He does a 1:28.35, so he's even quicker. So Christian Hahn really starting to muscle in now. Peludo 3rd, Alsu Feldman 4th, and Rodrigo Melo in 5th position, but the times are still going to continue to tumble. And up to the top, Marcel Müller, 1:28.008. That is a monstrous lap, and it looked like he was actually losing it going into the first corner as well. So Marcel Müller, absolutely on it. Miguel Peludo does a 1:28.492. And where did Marcel Müller found that extra pace? 1:28.008 from Marcel Müller. That was monstrously fast. And he's certainly not gone off the road as Marcel Müller. It certainly looks as though he's wrestling the car a bit. But clearly trying to find that little bit extra and extract a little more from the car. Bouncing around the curbs, Werner Neugebauer trying to attack. Second back to Marcel Müller. Can he at least get it on the front row by displacing Christian Hahn? Marcel Müller, though, really saving his best for last there. What a lap. 1:28.0. Flirting with a 1:27 mark. Through comes Werner Neugebauer, nice and tidy out of the final turn, a little bit more power up over the top of the crest. Is this going to be enough for a pole time, or could he even get on the front row? It's front row for Werner Neugebauer, 1:28.21, but Christian Hahn is still right behind him. Can he get back on the front row? He can! 1:28.153. So there's Pedro Aguar, who is only 0.6 of a second away from the lap of Marcel Müller, and is in 7th place. But if he improves by a 10th, he could be enough for 5th position on the grid. And we're into the last minute and a half of the session. So Pedro Aguar currently in 7th. Can he improve? He goes 4th. 1:28.419 from Pedro Aguar. Very nicely done. And that's a 2nd row starting position if he keeps that. Amazingly, Marcel Müller's just done another lap, a 1:28.225. Ryan Mascarello's just done a 1:28.0. It's good enough for 2nd for the sport leader. Goodness me. But Ryan Mascarello has just found a 1:28.0, so that means that all bets are off, essentially. If Hahn and Neugebauer are smart, they could be able to find a 1:28.0 as well, and then it really is game on. But we're in the final 40 seconds. The tyres may not be good enough to do that. Here comes Alsu Feldman, looking for his run across the line. 30 seconds left, and he does a 1:28.6. That's his best lap, but it's not enough to get him out of 7th. He's 0.592 away from Marcel Müller's monstrous run. Here's Christian Hahn, the final couple of laps of his session. He's actually closed in a little on Werner Neugebauer. So Neugebauer and Hahn are basically trading sector times as they come through. Neugebauer does not improve, nor does Hahn, and they've got 6 seconds left as they cross the line. They've got one last chance if they can get a clean lap out of it. But look at this man, Ryan Mascarello, 2nd quickest in the session. Not bad for a sport class driver. 1:28.037, only 29 thousandths of a second slower than Marcel Müller, and he looks confident enough to go for a quicker lap. So here comes Ryan Mascarello in the hope that he can finish even stronger, and he's got a chance. The checkered flag is out. What can he do? Ryan Mascarello. It's a 1:27.816. Can you believe it? Ryan Mascarello storms to the top of the timesheets, going quicker than any of the Carrera Cup drivers. And they are stunned. Look at their faces. They cannot believe it. Ryan Mascarello, he's a sport class driver, and he's just pipped everybody in Carrera Cup. Absolutely brilliant from Ryan Mascarello. He was quick in the sport class category, but I don't think anybody expected him to go fastest of all in the top 10 shootout. And he is absolutely delighted. So Marcel Müller, Christian Hahn, and Werner Neugebauer scamper back to the pits with their tails between their legs. And they've been completely outclassed in the final flying lap by Ryan Mascarello. That is pure confidence. Fantastic stuff. I'm really impressed with Ryan Mascarello. Just finishing off in solid fashion there. But you would not have expected him to be as high as that, especially when he came out of the overall rankings in about 5th or 6th position. I would have thought he would be there or thereabouts in the top 10. But pole position, that's amazing. And they can have a very nice celebration about that. How about that, P1? The team are happy, but nobody's going to be happier than Ryan Mascarello, the man who put it all on the line and has come through with a 1:27.816. I did wonder if we were going to squeak into the 1:27s in this qualifying session, and we have done. But what an amazing lap from Ryan Mascarello. If that stands, then you've got 9 sport class drivers, you've got 9 Carrera Cup drivers starting slower and behind the mark of the sport driver, Ryan Mascarello. Pole position here in Velocitta. That is a stunning lap. It's one thing to get pole position in a field of 29, but when you're not even in the Premier class, that shows just how much Ryan Mascarello wanted this, and they're starting the celebrations before he's even been wheeled back into position. You can sense the euphoria. It is absolutely brilliant to see what these guys have been able to achieve. And Ryan Mascarello gets out of the car, and he has every reason to be jubilant. The crew helps him out. This is a big one. Ryan Mascarello, pole position in Velocitta. That's not bad for a sport class driver. Excellent work. That is a superstar effort from an absolute superstar. Ryan Mascarello, top spot. And he can really enjoy the plaudits he's going to get from that. And he's going to get a lot of pats on the back, not just from his team, but from a lot of other people in this paddock as well. Well, Ryan, you're not going to be a sport driver for much longer with that kind of pace. Excellent work. That just shows you all you need is a little bit of confidence, self-belief, and a powerful right foot. And Ryan Mascarello has put his car in pole position. He takes the trophy for doing so, and he'll speak to Gabby. You'll get the reaction on the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil website, of course. But what a job. What a run from Ryan Mascarello. That's a really solid pole position, and I'm not sure even he would have thought that was on until he crafted it all together, section by section, and pulled out the flying lap at the very end of the top 10 shootout as well. I think we had all decided it was going to be between Müller, Hahn, and Neugebauer. Ryan Mascarello hadn't. He's clearly got a different script to everybody else. It's a really strong lap for pole position, and he can be so happy, so delighted with what he's been able to achieve there. That is not an easy thing to pull off, actually, as well. It's not just the fact that he's come from the sport category to do that and pull off a pole position faster than everybody else in Carrera Cup, but on this circuit, trying to extract that little bit more out of the car than the Carrera Cup fraternity is very difficult indeed. This is a very admirable pole position from Ryan Mascarello, and certainly as far as his credence as a racing driver is concerned, he's going to be looking back on this lap. It's going to be a fairy tale every time he talks about it. Supreme job. And a very strong effort from Ryan Mascarello. Very deserving of the plaudits he gets from this. There's going to be a slight pause in proceedings before we prepare for the Sprint Challenge qualifying session. But Ryan Mascarello, your pole sitter in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil, here in Velocitta. into the action once again then for Porsche Carrera Cup, this time in the challenge category here on the Velocitta circuit in Mogi Guaçu in Brazil. A fabulous circuit, a fabulous location, and another fabulous battle. Once again, we're going to split this up into 4 sessions for the Sprint Challenge competitors. We're going to start with the Rookie Challenge drivers, then the Challenge Sport, then the Challenge Cup, and then the top 10 for Sprint Challenge. We will find out who is going to end up on pole position. It's another fantastic group of drivers that will fight their way out for position in Sprint Challenge. And it's already going to be a very competitive run of drivers. Again, separated into the 3 different classes in order to give the drivers a chance to have a little bit more space out on the circuit. So you're going to see Feldman, Neto, along with Claudio Reina, Eric Santos, Paulo Totaro, Caio Chavez, Wagner Pontes, Lucas Locatelli, and Claudio Shimao that will be out onto the circuit in this particular fraternity of drivers. That should be 8 drivers. I count 7 at the moment. Just trying to see who is missing from the fray. I think it might be Claudio Shimao who's not there. He's on my list, but I think was a last-minute entry, and for some reason it doesn't appear to have completed. There is Eric Santos, and now we look at the purple machine of Caio Chavez in the Chavez Racing colours. Definitely one to watch out for here. A race winner last time in the first round of the championship, and certainly one to keep an eye on for the Sprint Challenge. We're going to see what Caio Chavez can do in qualifying here at Velocitta. Certainly a driver worth keeping an eye on. It's going to be a very competitive run for all of the contenders out there. They're going to continue with so much to get excited about. Eric Santos has set the ball rolling by going around the course on a 135.867. Paulo Totaro on a 136.1. Caio Chavez 136.6. Alessio Feldman Neto on a 138.4, and Wagner Pontes on a 138.8. This is all just for references, as they're not actually in a position to go for the run just yet. They're still dialing in the brakes and tyres, as we see in every class. You've got to take a couple of laps to get that done. And there is the rather gorgeous looking number 99 machine of Wagner Pontes in the yellow and black of C4U. D4U, my apologies. The D4U Mogi Guaçu car, looking very hungry for success over the course of this season. Wagner Pontes, 0.3 of a second slower than Alessio Feldman Neto's banker. But obviously with it just being a banker lap, it's nothing to read too much into. But there's Paulo Totaro in the Mide Parts car. Down into the braking zone again. This part of the course is just so exciting to watch cars go through when they drop through that left, right, left hairpin, right hairpin section. You really get to see what these cars can do and just how confident these drivers have to be in order to extract the most out of them. Up and over the final turn, over the crest. And a fast time coming in from Paulo Totaro, 134.0. So only 35 thousandths of a second slower than Eric Santos. There's Lucas Locatelli in the Hakka car. Just trying to find a little bit more from this particular circuit. You can see you're trying desperately to find the entry point of the apex on a blind crest as that corner just drops down through the left. You can't really see the apex from that back straight. So you've got to guess where the turn-in point is, and you've got to hope that you've got it right. It's not easy to nail at all. As Caio Chavez has now gone to the top, 133.935. We didn't see that, but he's only done it by 46 thousandths of a second, so still very much up for grabs at the moment. But these guys, the rookies, have got to maximize everything they can from this course, because there is a better likelihood, as Lucas Locatelli goes top on a 133.349, there's a better likelihood of rookies breaking their way into the top 10 in Challenge than there's ever going to be in Carrera Cup, because there's fewer cars to go for the top 10 spot overall. There is the number 1, Alessio Feldman Neto, in the very distinctive racing colours. You can't really talk about it, but it's the former McLaren racing colours, and I guess there is a sort of tenuous link, because back in the 80s there was a Porsche engine in the back of a McLaren in the 1980s in this colour scheme. But it's been a colour scheme that's both as controversial as it is celebrated. Obviously the theme of it is no longer something we really talk about in terms of sponsorship due to the slight flouting of tobacco advertising, but it's traditional racing colours. That's why they've gone for that particular livery. It doesn't have anything to do with the cigarette packet in question. And Eric Santos going back to the top as Alcifer Neto does a 1:33.512. That's 0.6 of a second away from Santos's pace. So Eric Santos back into provisional pole on a 1:32.843. Then Carlos Chavez, a 1:32.942 is the best lap he has done so far. So definitely going about things in the right way. As we now look at Eric Santos trying to find even more from his car. And again, this is the blind crest drop. You can't find the apex until you're in it. It's a very difficult corner to get like this. And then you just drop through every apex. And because it keeps dropping, you're basically trying to find the turning point as you drop through. Locatelli is just on a 1:31.78 to really stamp his authority on this pace. And lap times, of course, slower than that of the Carrera Cup. The challenge drivers not quite at the same level. Lucas Locatelli going to come through and up over the top of the crest. Comes Eric Santos now. Can he get the time back? No, it's a 1:33.643 as some of our drivers are still limbering up, ready for their run. There's Carlos Chavez, formerly the fastest, trying to get back to the fastest time again. He's going to need to go quicker than a 1:31.788. So here comes Carlos Chavez. Is it going to be enough? Well, it's good enough for second. It's not good enough for first. 1:32.271 for Carlos Chavez. What about Alcifer Neto? Does not improve on the previous best time. And there is Lucas Locatelli, who doesn't seem to need to improve. 0.4 of a second clear of Carlos Chavez. Carlos Chavez is going to be really stretching to try and find more pace. Lucas Locatelli looks like a cruise missile trip back to the pits. That'll do. Thanks very much for playing. See if you can match that, says Lucas Locatelli. It's that confidence of knowing you've got plenty of pace in the car. You don't need to go for anything else. Eric Santos dropping his way through the S's, still pushing it. Hoping that that car does not get any understeer. You just want to keep it nice and balanced. It's got to be responsive, but also the back end can't travel. There's such a fine biting point between controlled and wayward. So in that final hairpin, and a very solid run continuing on here from Eric Santos. He comes off the turn, plants its way down the main straight and over the top of the crest. Is this going to be another front row start for Eric Santos? Provisionally, no, but he does improve on his best time. A 1:32.542, provisional third. As Carlos Chavez has been very committed on this lap. That final hairpin again, just trying to find where to plant the throttle, because you've got to go fast in, then gradual and progressive out. Here comes Carlos Chavez, 1:31.54. Just as Locatelli has parked it, Carlos Chavez finds some more, almost a quarter of a second quicker than Lucas Locatelli. And that is very good work indeed from Carlos Chavez. Maybe the crew from Lucas Locatelli's team may have brought him in a bit too early. Claudio Reyna does a fair job there. 5th position, 1:33.35. Bit of a disparity between the rookies, of course, in the challenge category. But still very progressive as we watch Eric Santos try and get back into the top 2. But he's got to find at least another 0.7 of a second plus to even go quicker than Locatelli. Came into the pits assuming nobody would beat him. Carlos Chavez has done exactly that. Eric Santos is hoping to do the same. So things could get very interesting here. Eric Santos out through the hairpin, hoping to find that little bit of extra pace. 40 seconds left on the timing screen, just for argument's sake. But here comes Santos. Is it going to be good enough for top 2? No, he doesn't improve on his 1:32.5. He actually does a 1:32.94 on that particular time run. So Eric Santos having to wait for another shot, but still a second away from the pace set by Carlos Chavez. Is he committing on this lap? It does look pretty fast, so maybe he is going to try and get one more time out of this car. Certainly going to look for it. We'll see what happens with his sector times to see how well he's going with it. Personal bests from Alcifeldman Neto, Wagner Pontes and Claudio Reyna as the checkered flag comes through for them. Wagner Pontes moving up into 5th position. Claudio Reyna unable to improve. But Caio Chavez and Lucas Locatelli look pretty much locked in the top 2 positions. It all comes down to Eric Santos and how much time he can find. I don't think he's going to find that much. So Lucas Locatelli, having got out of the car, perhaps a little bit too soon. But all is well at the Caio Chavez race team crew. Just waiting for him to come back in. He had a fabulous run to pole position provisionally in the sprint challenge. But obviously he is so far the fastest rookie. There is still more competitors to challenge him. We still have the entirety of the sport class to come. That is the category made up of Luis Souza, Leonardo Herman, Matthias Roque, Giuliano Bertuccelli, Marco Tullio, Sangho Kim, Seba Malucelli, and Celio Brasil. And then, of course, we'll have the 6 drivers in the Challenge Cup category. Christian Moore, Miguel Mariotti, Caio Castro, Sadak Leita, Antonella Bassani, who we saw a little earlier on, and Gerson Campos. So a fabulous run from Caio Chavez to stamp his authority on the Sprint Challenge rookie grade category. In Sprint Challenge, you're going to see a few more rookies bantering with the Sport and Challenge Cup front run. So the pace from Caio Chavez and Lucas Locatelli could well be enough to see them in the top 10 of the shootout. And that certainly throws down the gauntlet to the other drivers. But a 1:31.541, that's threatening pace. And the other 2 classes of drivers will be looking at that with intrigue. That might be enough to be the top spot for all 3 classes. It's not done yet, and we're still early days. But there's every chance that that lap from Caio Chavez might not be beaten until we get to the top 10 shootout. There's every chance of it. So they come out of the rookie challenge group full of confidence and full of happiness for Caio Chavez's efforts. The youngster's done a very good job there indeed. He can be very happy with that. It's a solid start, that is for sure. And he's all done and dusted with a provisional pole position. But as Gabby talks to Caio Chavez, will he keep it? Well, that is the kind of pace that's going to be very difficult for the other drivers to beat. But certainly Caio Chavez throws down the gauntlet in the Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil, doing a very solid effort and qualifying in provisional pole position. But with a 1:31.54, that's going to be tough even for the Sport and Sprint Challenge Cup drivers to beat. So we're waiting for the Sport and Challenge classes to come out onto the course again. And this is going to be a very intriguing qualifying session for the Sport class drivers to try and match the sort of pace that we've seen from Caio Chavez. Apologies that we weren't able to get a translation hooked up for you for his interview with Gabby. But you'll find all the reaction, I'm sure, on the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil website, which obviously also covers the Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil as well. But it's certainly a very good starting point and a very good benchmark for everybody else to go for. Caio Chavez looking good in the Sprint Challenge qualifying session in the rookie category, not just to be the fastest rookie, but potentially to be uncatchable. Lucas Locatelli doing a fair job, only 0.2 of a second behind him, bailing a little earlier than I thought he might have done. He certainly felt he was safe. He might still be safe for the top 10. But whether he's going to be able to match Carlos Chavez with a couple of laps less knowledge in the can, that's another question altogether. Fantastic work from our marshals so far. Obviously, in the world of motorsport, they never quite get the credit they should, so I'm going to take the opportunity to do so. Without them, we are nothing in this sport. We are so very grateful to all of the volunteers who give up their time and their dedication for the love and passion of motorsport. Be they young or old, be they male or female, be they new or experienced, we are very much indebted to the contenders around the course who don the orange overalls, the marshals. They are so invaluable to us. Out onto the circuit, the cars come again in the challenge category for the sport class. Luis Souza, Leonardo Herman, Matthias Roque, Giuliano Bertuccelli, Marco Tullio, Sanjo Kim, Seba Malucelli, and Celio Brasil. This is where things are going to get very interesting indeed. There is the hard-charging competitor in the number 55, that is Marco Tullio in the Eurobike machine, hoping that he is going to be flirting with the same sort of lap time pace as Carlos Chavez was in rookie. And certainly, Marco Tullio is going to be one of the drivers who will be threatening right up at the sharp end. So we'll have to see what Marco Tullio can deliver. Certainly looking for good pace early on. There are Matthias Roque and Leonardo Herman who are running very close together. One of the things I've always absolutely adored about Porsche Carrera Cup racing, whether it's in Carrera Cup or Sprint Challenge, no matter which nation it is, you can't flout the engineers and the teams and the mechanics for the upkeep of these amazing race cars. They all look spectacular. They've all got very unique personalities and colour schemes. They're all very identifiable. And it's great to see that the presentation of these cars is always still as high as ever. So we have 8 drivers in the challenge sport category now who are going to try and get to the same sort of competitive pace as Carlos Chavez, who is obviously resting on a 1:31.847. So Celio Brasil is the first one out there on the course as it happens, the number 139 car. Giuliano Bertuccelli is running in the mix there as well, so too Marco Tullio. And then of course we have those two that we mentioned before. Looks as though Gabby is just catching up with Antonella Bassani, one of the new superstars in Brazilian sports car racing. Still a very new face to the world of Porsche Brazil, but certainly one of the big talking points and one of the big stories here, already showcasing her skill and talent. And she'll be out, obviously, in the challenge category very shortly. A hot favourite for the championship this season, not just for victories every now and then, but certainly one of the drivers that in Sprint Challenge Brazil could definitely be a strong candidate for the title. And a lot of headlines are going to be written about young Antonella Bassani. And there's a lot more still to come from her, I'm sure. The hype is real for Antonella Bassani. Not just a glamorous female in Brazilian motorsport, but a very quick one as well. Definitely one of the coolest of the headlines that are coming through this country in motorsport circles. There is Celio Brasil, who is just getting himself up to speed, hoping for a particularly fast run. In it's almost a Duckham's yellow and blue white livery there, isn't it, for the British fans who are watching along. But it certainly looks absolutely gorgeous in the sunshine here at Velocitta. Right now we're starting to get drivers pounding in some banker laps, and already Marco Tullio has put himself in the top 5 overall with a 1:33.0. That's just the first preliminary lap. So 1.4 seconds still to find. I would say that's achievable. For the record, the current second fastest competitor from the sprint drivers is Sanjo Kim, who has gone 9th overall with the first banker of 1:34.971. Then Leonardo Herman in front of Luis Souza, Celio Brasil, Giuliano Bertuccelli, Seba Malucelli, and Matthias Roque for the 8 drivers in the Challenge Sport category that are running. There is Sanjo Kim, currently running in 10th position because it looks as though Seba Malucelli has just crept into the top 6 overall with a 1:33.126. And there is Leonardo Herman for the Coppet car. Just trying to squeak into the top 10, currently 4.4 seconds away, still in the tyre warming phase of his qualifying run though, so still more time to find. Plenty of that going to be coming very shortly indeed though, as coming out of the final turn, this looks like it's going to be a fast lap rather than a warming up lap. So we'll see where Leonardo Herrmann is going to improve. Currently on a 1:36.0, let's see where he ends up. Second, 1:31.75. So there we go, second overall, just quicker than Lucas Locatelli. And Chega Brasil gets a 1:32.354 to go quicker than Eric Santos, the rookie. And Marco Tullio now goes fourth. So now we're getting some serious laps coming in. 100% car, Seba Malucelli in the number 100. Perfect marketing from the team. Oh, and a spin! A spin from Seba Malucelli. Just overcooking the back of the car and then stalling it, I think, perhaps. So having to reboot it, whilst also hopefully not impeding anybody else on their run. But Seba Malucelli ruins a fast lap. Let's see how he did it. Just far too much pace. Early on the throttle, the car is still in its turn-in phase. And that's a lap ruined for Seba Malucelli. Hopefully, there's a few more to come, though. And that lap is completed by Seba Malucelli, but of course, it's a 1:47.9 because of the spin. Dropping down the crest, and that is Chega Brasil in the 1:39. Hoping to find a little bit more pace from the car. Still exploring it. Leonardo Herrmann is the leading sport driver at the moment, currently in second overall, a 1:31.756. You'll note the sport drivers based on the fact that they have CHAS in the timing screen to the left of your graphic. And up to the top has come Leonardo Herrmann, 1:31.001. There we go. So Carlos Chavez's time has been beaten, but Chega Brasil has gone even quicker, 1:30.998. Now we're getting some serious battles for the top 10 shootout. All smiles and all just keeping it nicely in check at the moment. Matheus Roque has gone quicker than Carlos Chavez, as has Marco Tullio. So now the leading rookie is in 5th position. So Chega Brasil, there he is. Top spot in the sport category at the moment. 1:30.998. 0.003 of a second quicker than the time set by Leonardo Herrmann. There's nothing in it really between these two. And this is the battle just to get into the top 10 shootout. We're not even in the hunt for pole position yet. There is Seba Malucelli after his spin on the previous fastest lap. Hopefully, this is going to be a much bigger improvement from him. The time that he had provisionally set as a banker was a 1:33.1. This will be his first clean, fast lap. What can Seba Malucelli do? 10th, 1:32.5. And that tells you a lot about the condition of the tyres after that spin as well. So Seba Malucelli not even quite up to the same pace as the rookie driver Eric Santos yet. Chega Brasil, 1:30.998. Still going strong, but certainly needs to find a little bit more pace if Leonardo Herrmann finds more, because they're only separated by 0.003 of a second. Herrmann is about to come across the line, I do believe, to finish the lap, and goes top, 1:30.801. What can Chega Brasil do? Will he take it back immediately? No, he won't. 1:31.149. So Leonardo Herrmann has gone back to the top spot. A couple of drivers running wide out of the final turn, as Marco Tullio and Matheus Roque do not improve their times on that run. And Marco Tullio is backing off, so no fast lap coming on this one. Leonardo Herrmann, though, this man in the green Coppet Porsche number 23, running at the top spot with a 1:30.801 lap time. Very strong run so far from Herrmann. It's not done yet, it's not over. So we've still got 3 minutes left of this particular time group, and then of course we'll have the challenge drivers coming up later, and then we'll have the top 10 based on their pace. But we're certainly running out of positions for the rookies to hold up. Only Carlos Chavez, Lucas Locatelli and Eric Santos remain of the rookie drivers in the top 10 now. And Santos is on the bubble because that's been an improvement made by Sang-Ho Kim to move up into 7th position. And Seba Malucelli has come up to 3rd. So finally, Seba Malucelli has found the pace. I did wonder why Malucelli hadn't quite got up to speed yet after that spin. But he was just biding his time. 1:31.250 from Seba Malucelli. And that is only 0.2 of a second off the pace of Chega Brasil. So Seba Malucelli now into that top 3. Leonardo Herrmann having one more crack at the pole time, perhaps. He's just done a 1:34.9, so we're backed right off the pace. There's Chega Brasil, still going very quickly in behind him, and actually now trying to follow in the slipstream, perhaps, looking for a tow. Matthias Roque goes fastest of all, though. 1 minute 30.733. So out of sight, as we were too busy looking at Herman and Brazil, it's Leonardo Herman who is now second. This man has gone top spot. Matthias Roque has now gone fastest of all on a 1:30.733. Not a bad run, and unfortunately that pushes Eric Santos out of the top 10, as well as an improvement from Giuliano Bertuccelli. So now we have just 2 rookies left in the top 10 shootout, provisionally at least, because of course if we get a few more drivers going quickly in the challenge category, then Carlos Chavez may well be out of that session as well. Leonardo Herman trying to find that little bit of extra pace to get back on terms with Matthias Roque. He's only 68 thousandths of a second slower than Roque's time, so if this is going to be a clear lap and a fast one, then Leonardo Herman does have a chance. But it looks to me as though he is going to really struggle to find that little bit of extra time. Leans in on the apex. Gets back in on the final turn. When he crosses the line, he'll only have one more chance to displace Matthias Roque. But certainly the pink machine has gone up to the top spot. But is Leonardo Herman about to displace him? Chelio Brazil has overtaken him and gone through and continued on. Herman is going for one more run, having backed out of it on the previous one. Here is Matthias Roque. Previous lap, 1:30.733. Can he go faster still? No, he backed off on this lap as well, as did Marco Tullio. So there we are. It's not done yet, though, the final few seconds. There could be a couple of improvements. Lucas Locatelli is still in the top 10 shootout, as is Carlos Chavez. So we still have 2 rookies in that top 10 at the provisional point. But Matthias Roque in front of Leonardo Herman and Chelio Brasil. And then Seba Malucelli, Marco Tullio, Carlos Chavez, Sangho Kim, Lucas Locatelli, Luis Souza, and Giuliano Bertuccelli as the checkered flag comes out on the challenge group of the sport category. But Matthias Roque is currently the fastest driver. Still waiting to see if that's going to change going into the next phase as we look at Giuliano Bertuccelli, who has just scraped his way into the top 10. No more real effort needed there from Bertuccelli. All of the sport drivers have now made their way to the top 10, but getting into 10th position now for Giuliano Bertuccelli is not really going to be enough once the sprint challenge drivers come out, because even though there's only going to be 6 of them, you're asking the best 6 drivers on paper in the category to go slower than Giuliano Bertuccelli on a 1:32.1, and I don't really see that happening, and I don't think he does either. Sangho Kim looked good initially, has not really been able to keep up that pace unless with this final lap, the Dieu 71 car of Sangho Kim is going to have, he messed up there in the final hairpin, so he's had to back out of it. That's a real shame, and he's obviously missed the pit entry as well. So Sangho Kim is not going to improve on a 1:31.724. Frustrating for Sangho Kim. It was looking like it could be very strong up to that point, but he cruises across the line. He knows that that lap's not going to be a fast one. Bitter disappointment for Sangho Kim there. It was looking good up to that point, but then it all went wrong in the penultimate hairpin. Looked like he could have had a committed run, but then bailed. So the provisional top 10, because we still have the sprint challenge drivers to come out. Matthias Roque is quickest on a 1:30.733. Leonardo Herman is just 68 thousandths of a second slower. Then Chelio Brasil, Seba Malucelli, and Marco Tullio. Then Carlos Chavez, Sangho Kim, Lucas Locatelli, Luis Souza, Giuliano Bertuccelli in the top 10. Behind that, of course, it is now the 5 who are eliminated. Eric Santos, Alci Feldman Neto, Wagner Pontes, Claudio Reina, and Paolo Totaro. And that's a very happy Matthias Roque. That'll do. He's through to the top 10. He knows that for sure, because there's not going to be enough drivers to knock him out of the top 10. But it's this psychological upper hand that lap gives him. That's the thing that really counts. And Matthias Roque can be very happy indeed with that. A very solid run ahead of Leonardo Herman. And not a bad run either from Chelio Brasil, but excellent from Matthias Roque. Just so smooth on his lap. was able to make it look fairly academic once it was all tidied up. But he can be very happy with that, and that guarantees him a place in the top 10 shootout, because with the 6 drivers still to come in the final group in Sprint Challenge, he can only be dropped to 7th place if those 6 drivers go quicker than him. So whatever happens, he's through, and Matheus Roque can be very happy with that. He'll speak to Gabby. No doubt you'll get the reaction in full on the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil website. Unfortunate that I can't bring you the translation of the interview on this occasion. Apologies for that. I will work on my Portuguese. I will try and improve on it. But I'm sure Matheus Roque will be talking about the challenge of it, how difficult the lap is here, because it is incredibly difficult to get it right. But he knows that whatever happens, he'll go through to the top 10 shootout and the challenge for pole position. Now we'll get to see the top 6 drivers in the challenge class category try and wrestle that top spot away from him. Christian Moore, Miguel Mariotti, Caio Castro, Sadak Leita, Anatella Bassani, and Gerson Campos. 6 drivers, all hoping to push their way forward and get into that top 10 challenge shootout. We'll see how many of them will get there. A very happy and very satisfied Matheus Roque, and with very good reason indeed. Despite pushing and kicking up the dust a little into the radiator there, he's a happy man, and he's got every reason to be. The car absolutely responding and biting at every turn-in point, and a fast time too. 1:30.733. That's a very respectable effort from Matheus Roque. Can he hold the top spot, despite the fact that he's got 6 challenge drivers coming out? Well, stranger things have happened in motorsport. We're about to find out. And so we venture out one penultimate time as the challenge category drivers head out onto the course, ready to put pedal to metal to see if they can displace the times set by Matheus Roque. And here are those competitors. There is Caio Castro in the yellow and black machine, trying to find a little bit of pace now, having had a fantastic run in the first round of the championship. We'll talk a lot about that in the build-up to the first race a little later on. But certainly Caio Castro with the Cuna yellow machine with the Golf branding on the car as well is definitely going to be one to try and push up to the top spot and hopefully try and get their way into the top 10. It's going to be touch and go now for Caio Chavez as to whether he's going to be able to keep his position in the rankings of the top 10. Probably potential for Lucas Locatelli as well. It's going to be close, but it's not done yet. Love the drone that flies over in these championships in Brazil. They have absolutely no issue with getting right up close to the action in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil and Porsche Sprint Challenge Brasil. Wonderful to see. You get some really dynamic shots as these cars get very close indeed to the action. But Caio Castro flying around the course, just trying to get up to speed. Also up there, of course, we've got Gerson Campos and Antonella Bassani and Miguel Mariotti in that mix. So it's great to see those competitors pushing on. And of course, we also have Christian Moore, who'll be hoping to find the ultimate pace. There is Christian Moore just going into the first lap out on the course. As we watch all of the competitors trying to find a little bit more speed from the cars coming through. There is Geração Campos, just trying to find the pace out of the final turn and hoping for a solid run. So Geração Campos having already completed one lap. Geração Campos goes straight into 7th place then on a 1:31.7 to immediately displace Sang-Ho Kim and Lucas Locatelli and knock out Giuliano Bertuccelli. So already one car going around the course has knocked out Bertuccelli from the rankings of the top 10. I don't think they were under any illusions that they had a better chance than that of getting through. There is Antonella Bassani, the Mobil 1 car. Keep an eye on her over the course of this 2024 campaign. She is definitely a very talked about racing driver, full of potential, full of hunger and determination, and definitely one that could make some waves here. Of course, if she keeps on elevating her status, it might not be too long before we see Antonella Bassani representing Porsche in bigger things. Just because they're in Sprint Challenge Brazil at the moment, that doesn't mean that that's where the journey stops. They just keep on rising and going up through the ranks and continuing with great things still to come. There is the fabulous white and grey machine of Sadak Leita, who is now the 6th challenger in the mix. So good to see all 6 of the challenge drivers out on the course. Sadak Leita actually waiting a little bit to head out onto the circuit, not going out at the same time as everybody else. Geração Campos has already moved forward. Miguel Mariotti has also gone quicker than Bertuccelli, just to hammer it home for him. And now up to the top spot. Goodness me, Geração Campos, no waiting around. A 1:30.602 for Geração Campos straight away up to the fast end of the track. So that is amazing. Took Matheus Roque most of the session to get to the top spot. Geração Campos not waiting around at all. Straight in, bang, 1:30.602. So now the pressure and the gauntlet is thrown down to Caio Castro. What can Castro do by comparison to Campos? Across the line, well, Miguel Mariotti has dialed in a 4th place time. Caio Castro is still dialing up a run, 1:35.703, so still nowhere at the moment. But this man, Geração Campos, has not waited around at all to get the fast time in. Has clearly decided, if you snooze, you lose. And has managed to come through for a fabulously fast time, a 1:30.7. Now up to 4th comes Miguel Mariotti. Up to 6th comes Antonella Bassani. So they're now starting to dial in the big laps. 1:30.84 from Miguel Mariotti, 1:31.01 from Antonella Bassani. So already right up at the sharp end. But can Geração Campos go even quicker? Because that was just a benchmark lap, essentially. That was the first flyer from Geração Campos. I reckon that car has even more time in it. Christian Moore does a 1:30.692 now to go just 0.09 of a second slower than Geração Campos. And don't forget, this isn't even the fight for pole position yet. We're not even in the top 10 shootout as yet. Geração Campos, 1:30.44. Fabulously quick lap. Now, this is not really what was in the script for Miguel Mariotti. He didn't want to get held up here by Caio Castro. That's exactly what's happened. He's had to bail out of this lap and give himself a little bit of breathing space ready for another go. So that's really hampered Miguel Mariotti's progress. Hopefully that's not going to be too costly a problem. Meanwhile, Caio Chavez is on the bubble. Not anymore. Caio Castro goes 9th, and that knocks out Caio Chavez. So that's the leading rookie out of the top 10 shootout. And only a second slower than Geração Campos. But that's how competitive it is in this category. Christian Moore, watching him going through. So Christian Moore, 2nd position, 0.2 of a second slower than Geração Campos on the previous lap. But Campos has done 4 laps. Christian Moore is on his 4th. So can Christian Moore find 0.244 more than Geração Campos has done on his most recent flying lap? Christian Moore definitely looks quick. Is it going to be enough for the top spot? It is, 1:30.371. So a good run from Christian Moore. As now we wait to see what Caio Castro can continue to do. He's up into 9th place. He's already knocked out Caio Chavez. Marco Tullio is on the bubble as well. So there's a very strong chance that we're going to have a hiccup from Marco Tullio, especially if Sadok later manages to find a little bit more pace. But Christian Moore is the quickest driver out there now, 1:30.371, 78 thousandths of a second quicker than Gerson Campos. Matthias Roque and Leonardo Herrmann are still in the top 4. Miguel Mariotti up to 5th, just quicker than Celio Brasil. And Antonella Bassani has gone quicker than Seba Malucelli, with Caio Castro just out-pipping Marco Tullio. Those are the top 10 at the moment, but there is still a chance for Sadok later to get faster still. Caio Castro goes 8th, up to the top comes Miguel Mariotti. Mariotti on a 1:30.2. So a very strong lap indeed from Miguel Mariotti. As we were watching Caio Castro go 8th, the car just behind him on the road, Miguel Mariotti, has gone quickest. So very solid work indeed, as now we keep an eye on the 66 of Sadok later, who's hoping to get into the top 10 by going quicker than Marco Tullio. To get there, he's got to go faster than a 1:31.442. So a 1:31.441 would do it. It's still looking a little bit hectic for Sadok later at various points of the course. Very wide in the final hairpin. His previous best time is a 1:32.239. Well, certainly that was what he did on the previous lap. His best is a 1:31.74. Not anymore. It's now a 1:31.555. But that is still only good enough for 12th overall. It's not good enough to get into the top 10 yet. So he's still got to find another... Well, I'm trying to figure out just how much time Sadok later's got to find. It's only another 10th and 200ths. So essentially 0.12 of a second quicker, and he's in, and that's where he's trying to find it. Look, kicking up the grass, trying to get the job done as we watch Caio Castro sidling up to the time of Antonella Bassani. But Mariotti is overall fastest at this point from Christian Moore and Gerson Campos. Castro cannot improve, 1:31.1 compared to a 1:31.0, which is the best he's done so far. Antonella Bassani's just done a personal best, a 1:31.011, which is only 0.7 of a second away from the pace set by Mariotti. But of course, we're not even in the top 10 shootout yet. We're still just questing to get into that top 10 shootout. And so far, it looks as if we're going to have 5 challengers and 5 sportsmen. But we won't have any rookies now that Caio Chavez has been kicked down to 11th place after that fabulously quick run at the end there from Caio Castro. Into the pits to prepare for the next one comes Miguel Mariotti. He's happy with that, 1:30.236. He's confident will not be beaten now. And here comes Sadok later, looking for an extra 10th of a second. 1:31.8, it's not enough. He's got one more chance with this lap. Twitch into turn 1, tidy it up, be smooth. Smooth is fast. So there's Caio Castro, looking set for the top 10 shootout in 8th position, has slowed right down. I think the only driver really out there now on fast laps trying to find that little bit of extra is Sadok later, who is just desperately trying to break into the top 10. Caio Castro knows he's in. He's quicker than both Seba Malucelli and Marco Tullio, so he doesn't need to put any more into the car. All of the 6 drivers have progressed into the top 10 from the challenge category, except one, and that is Sadok later. There he is, just trying to extract that little bit of extra from the car. He just needs to improve on his best time by 0.12 of a second, and he is through. But that is easier said than it is accomplished. He's got to go quicker than Caio Chavez and quicker than Marco Tullio. And all that takes is 0.12 of a second. He's going to run out of time now, but this is his last lap anyway. He's got to commit, but he's also got to be patient. Oh, no. Sadok later tried his best. Well, he may as well spin turn and go back into the pits now. It's all done. What a shame for Sadok later. Spins away the chance of getting into the top 10. And if you're Marco Tullio, you have just breathed a huge sigh of relief. He is in. Sadok later is out. Well, a good effort from Sadok later. It was touch and go as to whether he'd have made it through to the top 10, but he certainly won't now. He crosses the line on a 1:42.931. A big shame for Sadok later. That could have been a lap good enough for the top 10. But Marco Tullio is, for the moment, safe. So the 10 drivers that will fight for pole position in the Sprint Challenge race are Miguel Mariotti, Christian Moore, Gerson Campos, Matthias Roque, Leonardo Herman, Celio Brasil, Antonella Bassani, Caio Castro, Seba Malucelli, and Marco Tullio. So a very happy Miguel Mariotti, able to go through without any issue whatsoever. Fastest in the challenge group. But now comes the serious business, the top 10 shootout. 5 challengers, 5 sports class drivers, and 1 pole position. No pressure on Matthias Roque, but of course we saw a fabulous run from Ryan Mascarello in the Porsche Carrera Cup. As a sport driver, he got pole position against all of the Carrera Cup class drivers. So let's see what will happen this time when the 10 remaining competitors, Mariotti, Moore, Campos, Roque, Herman, Brasil, Bassani, Castro, Malucelli, and Tullio, will all now go for the pole position here at Velocitta. And this is going to be tough. Really tough to find that extra bit of time. You've got to dig deep. You've got to find it within yourself. You've got to believe. You've got to manifest the fast time. It's a real psychological game in qualifying. Yes, you have other drivers out there on the course, but the only person you can blame if you haven't set the best lap time you can, ultimately, is yourself. It all comes down to preparation, calm, disciplined composure, control. It's all got to be in sync. You've got to be in harmony with yourself as you run around this course. It is not going to be easy. But these drivers definitely putting on an excellent showcase so far. There's Antonella Bassani, the sole lady in the field, and has gone 7th in qualifying to put herself into that top 10 shootout. Some drivers will have waited for this chance to get themselves through and saved their best for last. A lot is talked about Antonella Bassani, a lot of column inches in the motorsport press and even in the national press in Brazil. It would be fantastic to see her representing Porsche on an international stage one of these days. This is just the starting point. So as the 10 remaining competitors will head out onto the circuit to quest for pole position, the pressure starts to mount on this man. Miguel Mariotti, fastest so far from the time qualifying sessions. But now the top 10 shootout is his to command, his to demonstrate his speed. It's going to be a tough battle for pole position, that is for sure. You won't be able to get the translation with the interview with Gabby just yet, unfortunately. You'll have to read up on the website again for Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. I'm sure you'll get all the reaction. But now comes the top 10 shootout. What can Miguel Mariotti do to take this Velocitta pole position? It's going to be a very tough challenge, that's for sure. So many drivers wanted to take it from him. There's Caio Castro, just squeezing into the top 10. But I've got a feeling there's still a lot more to come from Caio, who has that very subtle nod to Ayrton Senna on his helmet design. It was interesting. I was watching the Brawn documentary that's on Disney Plus over here in the United Kingdom, and Felipe Massa was talking about, you have no idea what pressure there is on a Brazilian to be a racing driver. There's so much passion. There's so many great drivers that have come before. Fittipaldi, Piquet, Senna. You know, you have all that pressure on your shoulders as a Brazilian wanting to accelerate in motorsport. And there are so many great superstars of the sport, even to the likes of Lucas de Grassi, Formula E champion. You know, when a Brazilian does well on an international stage, it matters. This is a sport of very passionate people. There goes Antonella Bassani out onto the course to quest for pole position. If you're going to save your best for last, well, this is the time to unleash it. 10 cars, 1 top 10 shootout for pole position in the Brazil Sprint Challenge for Porsche. So out onto the circuit go 5 of the drivers from the challenge class and 5 of the drivers from the sport class. Great to see how competitive it has been today. Sadly, not one of the rookies has made it through. Carlos Chavez will start 11th for his race, just missing out. As you can see, a nice preparation there of the Porsche cars in pit lane. Sans wheels. And it shows you just how beautiful and pretty these cars are, even when they're not in race trim. There is the provisional pole sitter, Miguel Mariotti. But a lot of work still has to go in qualifying. This is where drivers really will push their limit and try and find that little bit of extra time. Well, Bibendum is having a lot of fun, enjoying life here in Brazil. Good to see you, Bibendum. Hope you're doing well, sir. The Michelin man, really enjoying the Brazilian sunshine here at Mogi Guaçu. And now comes the crunch time moment. Drivers still warming up the tyres and brakes to the optimum temperature. You've got to have confidence in this car if you're going to really stretch the limit of what it can do. For the record, it's Geração Campos that crosses the line first. He's going to be the one who'll set the initial pace. And he was very quick straight out of the blocks in his qualifying run. Chega Brasil and Miguel Moretti on the same bit of race circuit together. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the races later over the weekend. And we'll bring you all of those right here. 2 races in Carrera Cup and the 1 Sprint Challenge race. We are very excited about how this weekend is going to play out. Geração Campos, Antonella Bassani, Leonardo Herman, Caio Castro, Matias Roque, Seba Malucelli, Chega Brasil, Miguel Moretti, and of course Caio Castro and this man, Marco Tullio, are all going to be going for the pole position. So let's see what happens over the course of the run. I just realised that I mentioned Caio Castro's name twice. The other man in, of course, was Christian Moore, who was so quick in the previous challenge class shootout. Let's see what the banker is. It's a 136.0 for Geração Campos. That's definitely going to be beaten pretty much by everybody in the top 10 shootout, I would think. But it's nice to get a sort of a benchmark time on the board to know what you're shooting for. Here's Matias Roque. And Geração Campos has actually just done a 131.215, so straight up there to a top time. The time has been updated. I think there was an issue with my screen, but a 131.215 is the pace. But now it's Antonella Bassani, a 131.163. She finds some big pace on her first real lap. Chega Brasil, Caio Castro now into 4th, Leonardo Herman in P5. And there is Antonella Bassani. If we stop the session now and did not continue, Antonella Bassani would be pole position. But can she sustain this pace for another 6 minutes? Seba Malucelli in behind Matias Roque. And we wait for the times from Marco Tullio, Miguel Mariotti and Christian Moore. Certainly a good run from Antonella Bassani. And the crew there, all wanting to see what she can do up at the front end of this field. It would be great to see her at the sharp end of the dais, pushing hard on this flying lap. Kicking up the dust. But Antonella Bassani absolutely wants a fast time. Christian Moore goes provisional 3rd behind Geração Campos on a 131.9. But these fast times are going to get faster and faster still. No lap time yet for Marco Tullio. That's about to change. And Tullio goes 3rd, 131.65. But with 5.5 minutes to go, Antonella Bassani really is pushing it into the final couple of corners of the lap. And she's looking very poised. Trying to extract that last little bit out of the Mobile 1 car, going very wide, and that's going to compromise the end of the lap. So she'll have to go for another one to see if she can get that tidier. But across the line, she will go provisional fastest. Geração Campos has done a 130.583. Antonella Bassani has come through for a 130.40, but there is going to need to be a faster time than that for sure. Leonardo Herman, 131.01. Chega Brasil, 131.394. Marco Tullio, 131.65. And Caio Castro now goes 2nd, 130.537. There is Caio Castro, having just gone to P2. Here comes Christian Moore. Seba Malucelli, 4th place. Still no fast times yet from either Christian Moore or Miguel Mariotti. We're still waiting for their best. And here comes Christian Moore, just to hammer home the point. What can the Votomassacre number 3 do in the hands of Christian Moore? the final turn. Up on the curbs. This is looking very clean, very smooth from Christian Moore. Is it good enough to go to the top of the timesheets? We will find out. No, 1:30.47. Third position only. And here comes Miguel Mariotti. And it's 1:30.259, we're told. Miguel Mariotti, 1:30.259, 0.14 quicker than Antonello Bassani. My timing screen seems to be a little slow on the uptake, unfortunately. But Miguel Mariotti has come through to be the top spot at this point in the proceedings. Just under 4 minutes to go. Well, the teams are removing the cars that are not part of the top 10 shootout. That was Wagner Portesi's car. And here comes Miguel Mariotti, very quick. Antonello Bassani's just done a 1:30.519. Not as quick, but still good enough to be P2. And up to the top comes Leonardo Herrmann, 1:29.8. Here we go, we're into the 1:29s now. And that is a very good run from the sport class driver. Are we yet again going to have the sport category outclass the premier class? Because at the moment, that's exactly what we've got. Caio Castro has now gone into second ahead of Miguel Mariotti. So Bassani is fourth, Moore is fifth, Campos, Malucelli, Roque, Brasil, and Tullio. So out of the final turn, let's see what Miguel Mariotti can do. Up and over the top of the crest. Is it going to be better than a 1:29.818? It is not. 1:30.198 from Miguel Mariotti. So it's still quick, but it's not quick enough at the moment. There is Leonardo Herrmann, though, in the copper green Porsche. Yet again, it looks as though we could have a sports driver outclass the others, and that's a spin from Marco Tullio. So Marco Tullio, that's right at the end of the lap, I think. And Leonardo Herrmann could be very happy with this. 2.5 minutes left on the clock. And I don't really see anybody putting a candle to his lap. He has channeled his inner Ryan Mascarello. As Ryan Mascarello did the same thing in the Porsche Carrera Cup itself. Marco Tullio, see his car is stranded there on the edge of the course. Now that is a yellow flag, and that would suggest to me that nobody else is going to improve their time because they have to slow down under yellows. If that's the case, then we found our pole position sitter, and his name is Leonardo Herrmann. Celio Brasil goes 8th as he comes across the line. Leonardo Herrmann does not improve. So with 2 minutes to go, I'm still waiting to see if anything can change. Mind you, having said that about Marco Tullio's abandoned car, it is quite far off the racing line, so they might still be able to keep it green for the rest of qualifying. They've just got to be careful not to do the same thing he's done, essentially. So here comes Miguel Mariotti again, trying to beat the time set by Leonardo Herrmann and Caio Castro to get onto the front row of the grid. What can Miguel Mariotti do as he comes across the line? 1:31.1, it's not an improvement. So there's a lot of long faces, as you can see in the crew, because I think they can see that Miguel Mariotti's chances of being on the front row of the grid are slipping. Even Christian Moore can't improve. Antonello Bassani can't either. Gerson Campos has gone P6, just quicker than Seba Malucelli. And then Celio Brasil, Matheus Roque, and Marco Tullio finish off the ranks. This is going very well indeed for Caio Castro. Looking good. Miguel Mariotti going well as well. So diving down the crests once more. But it looks good to me for Leonardo Herrmann, 1:29.8. The only driver to go sub 1:30 as Caio Castro is just lining up one final fast lap. Only has one last chance to improve on a pole position run. And he'll need to find 0.271 to go quicker than Leonardo Herrmann. Slow into the hairpin so that he can go fast out. That's tactical. And here comes the 32 of Matheus Roque. Previous fastest driver in the sport category. Not this time. 9th is all that we can see from Matheus Roque. Mind you, he has just gone up to 7th, actually. So it's an improvement, but it's not a big one. What about Miguel Mariotti? He's about to run out of time as he comes through. Can he do anything about the pace of Herrmann and Castro? Checkered flag. What can Mariotti do? It's a 1:30.8. It's not an improvement. He remains in P3. So, very unfortunate for Miguel Mariotti. He will not be on the front row of the grid. Caio Castro is still trying to find a fast time from his car. But has he bailed? Well, the round of applause is starting in the pit lane. But for Leonardo Herrmann's crew, they don't want to jinx it yet. There are still a few drivers on flying laps. Just got to be very careful. Take a picture of that timing screen. because it might not stay this way. Caio Castro still pushing by the look of it, still hoping that there's a little bit more in the car. But Leonardo Herrmann looks quite confident here. 0.27 clear of Caio Castro. Castro still coming down the hill in the hope that there might be another chance, or is he going to bail straight for the pit lane? He is indeed. So Caio Castro will not get pole position. It's Leonardo Herrmann for the second session in a row. It's a Porsche Sport Class driver that gets the pole position over the Premier Class category. Ryan Mascarello did it in the first qualifying session in the Porsche Carrera Cup, and now in this session for the Porsche Sprint Challenge, it is Leonardo Herrmann that's done exactly the same thing in the cockpit Porsche number 23. Absolutely extraordinary. The pole position goes the way of a sport driver. So into the pits, and no doubt in celebration mode, Leonardo Herrmann gets pole position in the Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil here in Velocitta. The crew are helping him get out of the car, extracting him so that he can celebrate in style. But how about that? He's not just the fastest driver in sport, he is the fastest driver overall. No urgency to get out of the car at all, but Leonardo Herrmann gets to celebrate with his crew. He is the pole position in Sprint Challenge Brazil. Excellent work here in Velocitta. And the whole of Mogi Guaçu can stand and applaud. Leonardo Herrmann, pole position in Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil here in Velocitta. Excellent work from the cockpit number 23 car. And the whole crew pushing him forward to glory. And a fabulous pole position. For the second session in a row this weekend, the Sport Class driver outclasses the Premier category. And that is a very, very solid effort from Leonardo Herrmann, just as we saw from Ryan Mascarello in the earlier qualifying for Carrera Cup. And now Leonardo Herrmann does likewise. Brilliant stuff. Well, Caio Castro just misses out on the pole position, but he will start the Sprint Challenge race from the front row of the grid. You can be very happy with that. He outclasses Miguel Mariotti and Christian Moore when it counts. Antonella Bassani does a great job for P5 on the grid. Gerson Campos, Matias Roque, Seba Malucelli, Celio Brasil, and Marco Tullio will round out the top 10. So the pole position cap for Coppert going the way of Leonardo Herrmann just in the nick of time for the interview. You'll get all the reaction on the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil website in due course. Stick around for that, and stick around with us because we are not that far away from our first race of the weekend. It's going to be a really exciting battle out on the course, but in a little over an hour's time, we are going to go racing in fantastic fashion as we get ourselves ready for the very first race of the weekend. And it's going to be a very exciting one indeed. We cannot wait for that. 25 minutes plus one lap it'll be, and then we'll have 25 minutes plus one lap again for the Sprint Challenge. We're going to have a really exciting run from all of our contenders. It's going to be great racing, that is for sure, and we cannot wait to see how it's all going to play out. But for Ryan Mascarello and Leonardo Herrmann, they can spend the next hour focusing on how they're going to get into the first corner in first place. Not every sport driver gets the chance to do that. So they can both be very happy with their lot. And here in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil and Porsche Sprint Challenge Brazil, we've got a lot to talk about and a lot to get excited about here in Velocitta. The racing's going to be fast, furious, and frenetic thanks to the two men that have outclassed the Premier category in both qualifying sessions. The racing to come later is going to be extraordinary. I'm Jake Sanson. Join us later when Porsches will go bananas here in Velocitta. We can't wait.